much. Just to say, Jim Fanning from Tidewell School in New Haven, Denis, Sussex. You can see an image of the school there. That image was taken a couple of weeks ago when the kids all hoped that we would be closed because we'd 1 millimetre of snow. But obviously Mr Gov ordered us to stay open, so we stayed open. But an interesting place to work. As I say, school of 600 students. I've been there since 1993, which feels like forever and a day. My background is the youth service rather than mainstream education. I'd spent a decade before that working for the Kent Youth and Community Service, and then decided to get back into education again full time. Started in '93 in the school as a pastoral head, and then around about 2001, 2002 assumed responsibility for technology in the school. The school didn't look like that back in '93. If I just go on a bit, in 2005, there was a major fire that destroyed 80% of the school infrastructure and 100% of our technology. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you should burn your school down in order to get new technology, but in fact from that we got a brand new school which was opened in 2009. And one of the advantages of having a brand new school is that from the word go, you can talk to students, you can talk to parents, you can talk to staff, and you can actually get the kind of school and the kind of technology that you want as a school. So that is one of the advantages of teaching in a brand new school. That for most of the staff that are there was a lot of collaboration in terms of the kind of technology that we wanted in the place. The only issue in relation to mobile technologies is that it may look like a brand new school, but in actual fact, one part of it is brand new. The rest of it is built around the shell of the old school. And when it comes to actually coming up with a mobile technology solution in school, there's an issue in terms of the concrete structures and the steel frames that exist in most of the school building. But really, you should never start with the technology. I shouldn't be saying to you, well, hey, we want these mobile technologies because we want them. It has to be with your vision. And quite clearly, we've got a technology vision in school that we've consulted quite extensively on, and that technology vision is all about students as independent learners, students as learners who will work together, students as learners who can access teaching and learning anytime, anywhere, and students who, really importantly for us, will also collaborate with other young people and adults in that global community. Now, the last time we consulted on that vision statement was 2 years ago. We did a major consultation with parents and students and staff and governors in the local community. Interviews were held in school. There were online questionnaires, et cetera, et cetera. And I would feel fairly confident that if you walked into Tidewell and talked to members of staff and students, please don't do this, but ask them what the school vision is in terms of technology, they would be able to say, yeah, the key things for us in terms of technology are those things about being independent learners and collaborative learners and working with people beyond school. About a year and a half ago, we actually had a sum of money to spend in school. Sums of money, it was about £100,000. Sums like that don't appear that often. And in debate and discussion with senior teachers and staff, it really came down to, would we do network improvements, or would we actually enable Wi-Fi access across school and look at all those mobile technologies that you'll see downstairs in the exhibit centre. Thankfully, they went for a network upgrade, and I say thankfully because my point back then was that we needed time to actually investigate those mobile technologies, to do consultation with school stakeholders, and then decide upon a plan of action. And if at the end of that we actually decided we didn't want mobile technologies in school for these reasons, then that's fine. I think one of the key things for us was to be in charge and to be in control of that. And just because one of the schools next to us in Eastbourne had equipped every student with an iPad didn't mean that Tidewell had to go down that route, simply to be seen to be a school that had iPads and to be on top of mobile technologies. So back in March, we started to investigate those mobile technologies. We looked at the research that was available. There's not a great deal of research. There's a lot coming out of Australia. There's some examples from Scotland in terms of iPad use. And I think Denis itself has published a report which quite interesting. If you think teachers don't read these reports, that report went out to staff, and the first thing they picked up on, in the report it said, a deputy head teacher from the school where the mobile technologies had been researched had said, these technologies have the potential to revolutionise education and learning. So that's a fairly laughable statement, you've just really got to be careful what you say in terms of those technologies. But anyway, the reports were made available to staff, did a consultation with the stakeholders, visited other schools, looked at the technology and the solutions that were available. Where we are now is that since Christmas, we've bought in hardware and kit, and we've enabled Wi-Fi access across the school. Teachers coming back into school in January would have been able to have their own devices, their own smartphones, and their own tablet PCs enabled, so they could function on the school network. We're not there with students yet. I think we're probably sometime in the next 2 months. We'll begin to look at student access. One of the key issues, and I'll finish with this, one of the key issues that came out of the consultation process was that there was a quite clear dividing line between staff and students who said, we want these mobile technologies in school, we want to be able to use them anywhere, anytime in school, within a certain framework obviously, but we want to use them, it will support our learning. And the vast majority of parents, 95% of parents, said no, they shouldn't use those technologies in school because they are a distraction. If they use those technologies, they will use them for all those bad things that you read about in the press. You know, they will Facebook each other to death. They'll be in inappropriate behaviours. And funnily enough, the school governors, by and large, were opposed to that implementation of mobile technologies for student use. So really, that's the next thing that I'm going to tackle before we actually move into enabling student use of those technologies. It's actually informing parents, having more discussions with them, more discussions with the school governors to actually push that agenda forward. So that's where we are at the moment. It's been quite an interesting process over this past 12, 13, 14 months. And I've probably talked too long there, Denis.
Hi, I'm Denis Landie. I'm the currently Director of Information and Technology at Forest School in nearby Epping Forest. And I've been with the school for just over a year, starting as out in a consulting capacity. My own background is that I was in education, teaching ICT and computing in South Africa in about 1987. From 1987 to 1989. I then left education in some state of frustration. I was battling with Apple IIe's and I think some Sperry PCs at the time in a computer lab serving about 12 schools. So after that, I spent the rest of my career working really in technology, and the greater part of that was in the Vodafone group, looking at technology adoption and doing product research. So the one advantage I had coming into this business of bring your own device is that I was able to appreciate what the large vendors are doing and how they work, which is not always so nice. All the cynical things you hear are pretty much true. So. But what was important to me in dealing with the school, and they brought me in to do a review of their IT. So that was the brief that I started out with, and what emerged was that the IT was really well run. It was operating efficiently, everything was there, the infrastructure was there, and not very much was happening. So we had a range of pretty decent platforms and applications and so on, and what wasn't coming together was the execution. A lot of animosity really between the in the sort of probably between the technical and the education side. So moving from that, it was apparent that about 90% of the work was in, as Jim has said, in engaging the whole community and establishing a vision in terms of learning that was not technology bound. So I went through a pretty similar exercise of engaging staff and students in a blue sky sort of planning process, looking at two things really, the inherent values of the school, because these are important. We made use of some existing research, market research in terms of socio-demographic things of the parent community to really get a sense of how the whole community views the way that learning would move, because if you're up against too many obstacles in that domain, you really have to adjust your strategies in terms of rollout and to manage expectations and communication, so on, as you said. Outcome of that was a pretty substantial and I thought a really nice collaborative vision statement, which sort of dealt with 9 areas of learning. Things like anywhere, anyhow, anytime, looking at collaboration, looking at the role of libraries and as knowledge support and knowledge service units to kind of start to provide the foundations that should the methods of teaching and learning really start to change, that the supports and the content are there to enable that. High up on the list, as always, was, so what about the iPads? What about the iPads? And so, so in this process and on my timeline, I left the device strategy. I informed the school that this would take about a year to do the strategy. We could probably have put the strategy out in a week, but the market, as you know, is so hot at the moment in this area that really the best thing to do is to buy time. That's kind of the way we looked at it there, was to say, yes, we're going to pilot, we're going to go in, and the pilots are pilots, so we'll, if it comes back with a no or a negative or 100 different problems and no visible learning benefit, then we're quite happy to call it a day and invest elsewhere. Look at higher levels of penetration of access in the school, for example. So that's pretty much where we are now. We've gone into a set of trials in our foreign language department, and the experience that we have is some really we could have anticipated, but it's very necessary for people in the school to actually engage and experience these things themselves. Even if you, from a technical or experience perspective, you know what's happening. You kind of know that there's extremely heavy marketing going on. We know that the integration of these devices is not ideal. Communication, moving data around is difficult. So while it's inevitable that mobile or flexible or whatever carry-around devices will happen, the question is, should it happen this year, or do we have 5 in which we can do better by building good content in our learning environments, or a range of other activities that one could have as alternatives. So that's pretty much where we stand now, and I think that's it from me.
Yeah, I've been absolutely fascinated by working in these schools and seeing, as you know, Di can't be here, but different approaches, but very effective approaches. We're going to ask Kevin now to talk about your angle on the iPads and where you're coming from on that. And David is going to talk also on interactive whiteboards, because that was the last one, where I'm merging the 2 sessions together. That was the last initiative we had, and then we'll have a discussion about what we're learning about initiatives. So, I'll bring it. Yeah.
Can I use your mouse from here? Yeah, I don't control that. You can use it from here. I don't think I'm going to use much of this, Ray, but...
Could I pass this to another victim?
Yeah.
Kevin, do you want to sit here now?
You have the
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Can you pass the mic?